I like it there. Straight Nebo.
Now, what then would you say? Would you say that is a prism? Technically, would you say that is a prism? Yes, the way I am holding it, it is technically a prism. Agreed? Because it technically has a depth. Yes? All right. Now, is it a prism? What is that? That's just a rectangle because all you can see is the length and the width. Everybody good? Now, what if I turn it this way? Where's the length? Vertical. Why? Because Mrs. Bad Crumble taught you that the longer side is always length. Yes? No matter where I put it. Right? So this is the length. What if I turn it this way? It's on the bottom now. What else might you call it? No, it's length. It's the longest side. What else might you call this? Base. Then what would you call this? Height. But what if I turn it this way? Now what's the base? This. But you just told me this was the height. Exactly. See how the names for all the sides get stupid? You have to know the concept. You can't just know the names. Because when I turn it this way, you all want to say this is the height. When I turn it this way, you all want to say this is the base. What if I turn it that way? Now what's the base? The point. No. Everybody with me? Okay. So, that is the first important point here. The highlighted words, the two parallel identical shapes, those are the base. The base is the shape which starts the figure. It is not necessarily the bottom. Everybody cool? The base is the shape that starts it. It is the shape that repeats. Because if I take this rectangle and I stack it up 60 times, what do I make? I make a prism. Because it's just that rectangle repeated over and over again. Everybody with me? Spectacular. So, then we will talk about pyramids. Now, as soon as I say the word pyramid, what do you all think of? Egypt. Of course we think of Egypt. It's not very fair to the vast myriad of other cultures in the world that also use pyramids, but for some strange reason, we only care about the Egyptian pyramids. Even though Persians had pyramids, Greeks had pyramids, Aztecs had pyramids, Mayans had pyramids, Incas had pyramids. Everywhere had pyramids. But we only care about the Egypt ones because they keep making movies out of them. And Brendan Fraser's a good-looking cat. And why wouldn't you watch a movie called The Mummy with Brendan Fraser in it? But then they made worse movies like The Scorpion King. And the only thing that was good about that was The Rock, because he's the best in everything. I am even going to cave and see that stupid new Fast and the Furious. I have seen none of them, but I will see the one with The Rock versus Jason Statham. I don't care. I will see it because The Rock is in it and The Rock is going to kick ass. I don't care. I don't care. All of those movies sucked. Every single one of them.
Every movie he's in has the same plot line. He does the same thing in all of them.
That is not true.
Kind of.
Have you seen Get Shorty 2?
No.
Then you have not seen The Rock be a gay bodyguard. And it's spectacular. Now, okay, you guys are intelligent people. You were able to work out a definition for a prism. Now work me out a definition for a pyramid. Go.
Square bottom. Tip. Because cone.
So I'm hearing square bottom. I'm hearing triangles on all sides. I'm eavesdropping on your discussions. What else? 3D. 4 sides. One base. Okay. Zip. How does a pyramid relate to a prism? What characteristics could they share? Arsh. They're 3D. Excellent. What else could they share? Manru. They're square. Okay, so they start from a square. Must they be a square? So you are saying that's a pyramid, because those are the same, right? Okay, so what if it was this? Is that a pyramid? That doesn't look like it starts from a square. But it doesn't. They are not marked as being equal. These are obviously different distances. So keep talking to me. Has to be a square or a rectangle? Henry. Okay. There is a repeated shape. But what do you know about that shape? At the bottom, it's that big. What if the aliens come along and chop off the top? Will it be the same size? If it was a prism, it would be the same size, wouldn't it? Because the shape repeats. What happens in a pyramid? Hannah? Right. The base shape, is the base shape the bottom? No. What is the base shape? The shape which starts the figure, no matter where it is. The shape that starts the figure, in a pyramid, what happens to that shape as you build it? It gets smaller and smaller and smaller until when? Until it disappears at a point. Yes? So a pyramid is a 3D figure consisting of a constantly shrinking base that repeats. Is everybody with me? If I start with a shape and I put another one on top of it that's slightly smaller, and another one and another one and another one and another one, I build a pyramid. Okay, so they're easy to draw. There's a square one. There's a square on the bottom, and I make the pyramid. It can be a rectangle on the bottom. Can it be anything else on the bottom? Could I start with an hexagon on the bottom? I could, couldn't I? I would just come up to a point. And that hexagon is just shrinking, shrinking, shrinking. Can I have a circular pyramid? I can't? Of course I can. What is it called, Anu? A cone. I can start with a circle, and if that circle shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, I get a cone. Or if you were old like me, it was an old video game called Towers of Hanoi. And you had to move the discs around, and you couldn't put a big disc on a little disc, and you had to move the tower from one side over to the other side. Same as Lego. Is everybody good? Now remember how I said we have to be careful with the terminology and the verbiage, yes? Here is the first one you have to be aware of. Base is not necessarily the bottom. Okay? The base is where you start your shape from. So, this is, for lack of a better word, a cylinder, yes? Pretend it's perfectly cylindrical. Where would you say the base is now? Right here, because that's what it sits on, right? So where would you measure the height of this thing? Up the side. Agreed? What if I turn it this way? What's the base the way you want to say the base? You want to say the base is here because it's lying on the table, yes? But what is the base really? The circle that we start with, which means the height goes the direction that the shape repeats, no matter what. Does everybody understand? We say height and we measure vertically, but that's not the way it is, because not everything in the universe is horizontal and vertical, is it? If I turn it this way, now all of a sudden, what's the base and what's the height? The base, where you start, and the height is the direction that shape repeats. So that's the next thing I want to write over here that makes it difficult. Height is the direction of repetition. Oh, I spelled that wrong. I said repetition. Repetition. That way, no matter where I turn this, we always know what the height is. Everybody cool? Now, will that always matter? Let me ask you, is this a rectangular prism? If I hold it this way, is it okay to call this the height? Sure it is, because this rectangle is a base, and this rectangle repeated up, and there it is. Right? What if I turn it that way? Can I call this the base? Because this rectangle repeats, and it repeats straight up, so this would be the height. Right? Can I turn it this way? This is the base. So does it matter so much in a rectangular prism? No, base doesn't really matter. Does it matter in a pyramid? Yeah, you got to be careful with that. I'll give you an example of this. At the Louvre in Paris, there's an upside down pyramid. It's huge, and it's standing on a point. It's drawn. To draw it, it would look like this. And it sits on its point. So if I wanted to do some math with this, the base is now up there. Everybody cool? But it's the base because it's that shape that repeats. So that makes this the height, because the shape repeats that way. Everybody good? All right, now I'll give you another example of that in a few moments, but let's do some work with this first. The surface area is the total exposed area of a solid. That means if I were to imagine dipping it in paint, it's everywhere the paint would touch. So if this is my prism and I dipped it in paint, would there be any paint on there? No. So is this part of the surface area? No. What if I drilled a hole through it? Then there's surface area that the paint could get on. Would it get on this? No. But it would get on the circle all the way through. like that very first question on the very first day? Is everybody cool? Good. That means we can actually go forward. Let us draw and calculate the surface area of a cereal box. What shape is a cereal box? It's a rectangular prism. We're going to draw it the way it would look on the shelf at Safeway. Everybody good? And we're going to call them Mathos. Okay? No, wait. No. We'll call them Mathies. And there'll be shapes in it like plus, X, minus, zeros. All right. Now, as a prism, it's this, yes? But in reality, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rectangles, isn't it? So, there is that rectangle. There is that rectangle. And there is that rectangle, yes? And if we want the area of those rectangles, think back to grade 4. How do you find the area of a rectangle? Length times width. Area of a rectangle equals LW. Why does that no longer work? Because LW only covers how many dimensions? 2, and a prism has what? 3, so I need a new name. And the name that we use is height is the third dimension. Now the problem with that is, if I were to ask all of you, as it's drawn now, what would you say is the height? Would it be the green line, the pink line, or the blue line? You would say it was the green line, agreed? Okay, that's fine. If this is the height, that means it goes up and down, correct? So where is the base? You're going to say it's the bottom, right? But I don't want to call that B because I'm dealing with rectangles. So what would you call this? You're going to call that width? Even though we have this rectangle down here, and Mrs. Bad Crumble said the shortest side is the width? Does it matter? As long as you do it and keep it consistent, it doesn't matter. So if we think back to grade 4 and we were dealing with this rectangle on the bottom, which is the green rectangle, you would call this W, which makes this what? Oops. What does that make this? The length. Now, knowing what we know, I don't want that black line right there, Mr. Myers, idiot. Knowing what we know, and I don't want that line in there. So what letters would give me the area of the blue rectangle right now? Looking at the way we've drawn it, what letters give me the area of the blue rectangle? L times H. And how many blue rectangles are there? 2. Plus, what will give me the yellow rectangle? 2W times H. Plus, what will give me the green rectangle? 2LW. Now, when you look at that, what do you notice? 2, 2, 2. 2 times LH plus WH plus LW will give you the surface area of a rectangular prism. And as always, you could have looked right on your formula sheet and gotten the formula. But it's better to know how it was derived. Now, once you've got that, you've seen it all, you can fill it in, can't you? What of these three measurements would you say is h? What would you say is w? 8. And what would you say is L? 24. And then you just put them into the formula. 2L, 24, H, 40, plus WH, 8, 40, plus LW, 24, 8. Now, when you try to punch this into your calculator all in one go, some of you are going to get the wrong answer because you're going to get locked into going times, and forget there's two little additions in there. So go carefully and go slowly. Before you even punch into your calculator, get an estimate. Isn't that pretty close to 25 times 40? Which is 1,000, right? Isn't that pretty close to 350? Right? So 1,000, 300, and isn't that pretty close to 200? 25 times 8. Right? 1,000, 300, 200, that's 1,500 times 2. So a very good guess would be 3,000, right? So then you go to your calculator and you punch it all in. And let's say you hit times once too many times and your answer gets huge. Would you write that down? No, because you know the answer has to be approximately 3,000 because you took an estimate. Right? So punch that in. 2,000. 2,944 watts. Centimeters squared. Y squared? 2 dimensions. Now, please, learn right now if you are one of the people that has trouble punching long calculations into their calculator in one shot. If you are one of those people, as we go forward, should you continue to do that? Or should you break it down into smaller pieces? Like this is 960. This is 320. This is 192. Then you could add that up separately. Then you could multiply by 2. You will get to the same answer. Who amongst the people in this room knows if you are good at long calculations? Who is the only person that knows? You. I do not know. Everybody cool? Easy peasy lemon squeezy, yeah? Everybody feels they could handle a prism, right? All right, let's turn the page over and let's talk about a pyramid. It's a rectangle pyramid with those base dimensions. Okay? So, if it's a rectangle pyramid, what does the base of it look like? That means I start from a rectangle. How long is this side? 48. And what's this? 32. And if it's a pyramid, it's going to go up to a point. Agreed? Now, technically, what is that pyramid made of? On the bottom is what? A rectangle that is what size? 48 by 32, correct? What is out this side? A triangle. What is out this side? How does this triangle compare to this triangle? They're exactly the same. What is up here? What is here? How do the green triangles compare? They're exactly the same, right? So really, the surface area of a rectangle pyramid is a rectangle plus 2 triangles plus 2 different triangles, correct?
Yes.
Everybody with me? Does everybody understand what's happening here? Okay. Now, how do I find the area of a rectangle? No, don't. That's how you find this rectangle. How do you find every rectangle? Length times width. Now there's a problem here because this is the bottom of the pyramid, right? So we have to remember in our heads, yes, it's length times width, but it's also the base of the pyramid, isn't it? Okay, and then we're going to add, what's a triangle? Base times height. Wait a minute. Base times height. So now we're back to base. That's a problem. Well, this is the base of this triangle, isn't it? But it's also the width of the base. Everybody see why this starts to get confusing? So it's going to be base times height divided by 2. But there's 2 of them. What's going to happen to those 2's? They're going to cancel out. So far I've got LW plus BH. I know, I'm getting a little pissed off about it. And this one is going to be BH divided by 2 over 2 again, yes? So I'm going to be plus a second BH. Now, again, the verbiage and the words are a pain in the ass. And here's why. How would you measure my height? From where on my feet? Where on my feet would you measure my height?
The base.
The base?
Bottom.
The bottom. Okay. And then if I were to let you, and I were to give you a marker, how would you draw my height? You could draw it right on me. What would you do? You draw a line where? Straight up, right? Would it go around here to my height? No, it would go from the bottom straight up, yes? Okay. What is the problem with that here? I have been given a height of the pyramid, which goes from where to where? From the bottom to the top, right? So it would go from the bottom straight up, yeah? Is that problematic? Because I need the height of the triangle, don't I? And this is not the height of the pyramid, is it? Because when I fold this up here, there's the 65. How do I find that? Levi. I have to do Pythagoras. Because I know this and I know this. How far is this? Half of 48. 24. So that's the next problem. The H in 2D triangles. Yeah, I know, it's pissing me off. Quality. The H in 2D triangles is what we call the slant height on a pyramid. Highlight that word. Slant height is up the side. You often need Pythagoras to get a slant height or a real height. we often need Pythagoras. Everybody cool? Now, I'm out of room here. Right? And I'm sorry that my pen is doing this. I would restart the computer again, but it'll screw up yet another recording. I'm hoping that it's going to solve itself. So this height is actually on the pyramid a slant height. Everybody with me? Now, in a rectangle pyramid, how many slant heights are there? 2. There's one up this side because it's a smaller triangle, and there's one up this side because it's a bigger triangle, right? In a square pyramid, how many slant heights are there? 1, because all 4 triangles are the same. What if it was a cone? How many slant heights? 1, because it's a circle. Is everybody good? What if it was a hexagon where all the sides were the same? How many slant heights? 1. What if all the sides were different? If they're all different, it would be 6 if they were all different. If they were pairs like this, it would be 3. Does everybody understand? Sweet. So we're kind of out of room here, but everybody could do this, right? It's just multiply. Everybody cool, yeah? All right. Let's look at the next one. A cone. So let's draw a cone. Cone. Agreed? What's a cone made of? The bottom of it's real easy. What is it? It's a circle. How do we find the area of a circle? Pi r squared. But there's more to it, isn't there? What's the rest of a cone? Does anybody actually know? It's a section of a circle, isn't it? It's this. Wrapped around the circle, right? So since that's a section of the circle, what must be involved in finding its area? Pi. Someone said pi, and radius must be involved. But is it the whole circle, Jordan? It's a piece of the circle, right? So it can't be r squared because it's not the whole circle. But it must multiply by something else. And this area is pi times the radius times the slant again. And they add together to make this guy. Yeah. Now we already know what slant height is, right, Austin? It goes up the side. Height goes where? Straight up the middle. So, there's my radius. How big is that? 15. 15. Do I know my slant height? What do I have? My height. 22, correct? How will I use that knowledge to get the slant height? I will do Pythagoras. With what figures? Slant height must equal what? You know how to do Pythagoras. You guys call it a squared, b squared, c squared, but that's not what it is. It's Pythagoras. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. A and B are what? The sides. So A and B are 22 squared plus 15 squared. That will get me my S squared. Do I want S squared? What do I want? I square root, right? So this is the square root when you add it up of 709. Now here is where something weird is going to happen to you that is going to bother all of you. Up until grade 10, when you punch that into your calculator, you get 26.62 or some crap like that with a bunch of decimals, yes? Up to grade 9, you would punch that in and you would give me the decimal, wouldn't you? Round it off, right? And what would you say that value is in the 9th grade? 3.14. Is it? No, it's 3.14159467 blah, 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 for billions of decimal places. From grade 10 onwards. Not so much in grade 10, but definitely in grade 11 and 12, you are going to start leaving pi as pi. Okay? So here is what this would look like. Pi is going to be pi. For which would we use 3.14, the button on our calculator? You use the button on your calculator. What's R? 15 squared. So if we were in grade 9, this value would look like this. Pi, right? Button on my calculator, times 15 squared. In grade 9, I would write that. We are not in grade 9 anymore. What is 15 squared? It's 225. So what we would write here would be 225 pi. Does everybody understand? Okay? Plus pi, R was 15. Now we're in trouble here, aren't we? It's 15. S, we know, is a big yucky decimal again, don't we? S is really the square root of 709. That's easy to work with. So we would leave that as square root 709. So our answer would be plus 15. I'll talk about where 709 comes from in a second, Priya. Square root 709 and then pi again. This is what your answers will look like in math classes from now on. Could you go to Home Depot with that and tell them you want enough paint to cover a cone that big? You couldn't. Math class answer. In real life, for real life, we'd use the grade 9 decimals. Does everybody understand? Everybody's cool? Now, let me ask you this. Do you think I care?
Yeah. No.
Do you think I care how you give me your answers? No, because what's important? This concept. Now, you asked where the 709 came from, right? 22 squared plus 15 squared is 709. And then, to get the slant height, like all Pythagoras questions, you had to end by square root. But the square root of 709 is a yucky decimal. So I like it left that way. because that's what you're going to be doing in the future. You're not going to ever find a square root that's decimals in math class. You will in other places, but not here. Everybody cool? All right, let's try the last thing, and then I'm going to shut up. Come on in. Or not. Go ahead, Levi. Oh, whoa, Nicky Nine Doors. Whoa. I love it that I work in high school where the pranks are mature. So, what shape is a cylinder? I already did this gag. It looks like this, right? That's a pop can, yeah? What is it really? Two circles plus what? A rectangle, right? What's the area of a circle? Pi r squared. And how many of them are there? 2. Easy peasy. Because there's a circle on the top, circle on the bottom, right, Jessica?
Could you also, wait, you went radius times 2, and then like that would be the diameter, and then you times the diameter by pi. Is that still right?
Yeah, that's not the area.
Isn't that the circumference?
That's the circumference. Circumference is not area.
But that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. So now we got to talk about how to find the rectangle. Rectangles are easy. They're length times width, right? LW. Okay. Well, isn't that the W for my rectangle? But as a cylinder, would we call that W? What would we call it? Okay, so we're going to have to multiply by the height. How do I get the other dimension of the rectangle? It's the circumference of the circle, yes? How do you find circumference of a circle? How? Say it.
Radius times 2, which is the diameter times pi.
Right. 2 pi r times h, because that's my length, that's my width.
Yeah.
And then what must I do with those two figures? Multiply them. It's 2 circles and a rectangle. So I add them. 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. Now, soon as I see pi, and I remember I'm in grade 10, should I go to the pi button? If you're going to find the decimal, you're going to the pi button, right? You're not going to use 3.14 because you're not babies. But you don't even need to, because when you write it out, look at how easy it gets. 2 pi, what's the r? 5 squared, right? Plus 2 pi, what's the r? 5, and what's the h? 20, right? What is 5 squared? 25 times 2? 50. 50 pi. Plus, what's 2 times 5? What's 10 times 20? 200. Plus 200 pi's. What's the answer? 250 pi, without ever touching our calculator. That's the answer I want. Is that the real life useful answer? No. The real life useful answer, you would just on your calculator go 250 times pi button. You can estimate first though, right? Because what if I say I want the real answer? Well, then estimate. Pi is close to what? Closer. Something easy to work with in your head. So what's 50 times 3? What's 200 times 3? So it would be, the answer to this is approximately 750, right? Go to your calculator. 50. Come on, turn on. Turn on. Don't mess with me. 50 pi plus 200 pi 785. Pretty darn close. I've done the work. I know it's going to be around 750. I go to my calculator and I get 785. Everybody good? Now, remember, I've given you all these formulas, haven't I? Where do they live? On that formula sheet. Why have I taken all this time to show you how we build them? Knowing the formula is not enough, because the formula uses all those shorthands, right? They say height is everything, right? All right. Listen, please. You are off the hook for tonight. There is no work to be done. Tomorrow, listen, please. Tomorrow, we will be doing volume. Then, I'm going to give you work on both surface area and volume. And tomorrow you are writing your quiz. Now, even though I have told you all countless times that quizzes don't count, you're still going to stress about it. So tonight, have a look at your conversions. Make sure you know when to multiply and when to divide, because that's what your quiz tomorrow is on. Okay? You have 8 minutes left in class. Talk amongst yourselves. Yes. Yes.